Hello and welcome back to the worst Warmachine channel on the internet. I'm Malorian and this is Malorian Weekly. Now, as a reminder, I now have Patreon, the link's down below. Topics are either voted on or picked specifically by our patrons. So, patrons, I gotta learn this stuff, but I'll talk more about it at the end. Just very quickly as a reminder, what they chose for this week is going to be to talk about the new Infernal Gargantuans. This is something where in the Henchwald Scrolls, they're like, yeah, call in the Well of Souls. It's underneath the ground. It has all these stones. It's bubbling up. And we're like, oh, that's so cool. I wonder how this thing actually works. And then we never really got to see it there, but until there was that one picture that came from the whole role-playing game. There's a picture of like the Colossal and the one that fought. To me, it doesn't really look like how this one showed up, but either way, we've been teased for a while that these Gargantuans were coming. It was actually really cool where like Hungerford was like, well, there's not one, there's two. And so that was crazy, right? To learn that, wow, Infernals are not just getting one, but two Gargantuans. And I mean, Infernals is pretty strong, right? They're already a very strong faction. They do a lot of things. And so the fact that they now have Gargantuans, all right, we better all get on board and see what we're dealing with now. So what we're going to be dealing with in this video here is, first of all, we're going to go over the rules for the two Gargantuans. And at the end, we're going to be talking about how viable we feel these are going to be. Note that there are a lot of Gargantuans in the game, and the vast majority don't see play because they're just so many points. They just don't do enough compared to a couple of heavies or 2.5 heavies type thing, or 3. And so, yeah, they kind of sit on the shelf and they don't do a lot. Well, are these going to be that? Or are these like the Blockader and you're going to be seeing these in almost every single game? Don't worry, buddy. You know, it's back here watching me and it's going to punch me in the back if I say something too not nice, but we'll see. We'll see if it's Blockader good or Sea King not so good. So let's first get into these. There is the Guardian of Souls and the Harvester of Souls. Both of them are going to have 56 boxes. The Guardian is going to be 31 points. The Guardian, 34. Guess which one's the combat one? The 31. So we're going to start with the Guardian of Souls first. So like we said, 31 points, FA2. This thing is an Infernal Colossal Horror. It is having Essence 4, Speed 6, Strength 14, Mat 6, Rat 6, Defense 9, Armor 18, Command 5. Not that one really matters too much. We'll see though. We'll see. There's a lot of rules on this model. There is Eyeless Sight, Pathfinder, Soulless, and it has Abyssal Blast. Now, this is something that both of them have, and what it is a range 12, rate of fire 1, AoE 4, POW 14 magical attack. And it actually has the special rule, as I try and get to it, avoid static. So what that says is that this attack's AoE is a hazard that remains in play for 1 round. While in the AoE, enemy models cannot cast spells or be used to channel spells. Now, that effect is kind of really because, I mean, when you think about it, if it was one thing where like, I shoot you, and anything hit with the AoE can't be casting or arc noding. All right, you can specifically target the arc node or whatever it is, but when it's done like this, you have to kind of think and be like, well, where are they going to try and cast spells from? And in a lot of cases, if I go and say, haha, you can't cast spells here, they just go a little bit beside it. So, sure, if you're going to staple on an extra rule to a weapon, why not? But it's not really like a hazard that does damage. It's not a cloud. You're going to have to usually just get lucky, right? Because I'd usually normally want to shoot something to do damage, not just trying to hope it's going to stop the spell stuff. So sure, why not? I'll leave that hazard, and maybe in 1 in 50, 100 games, it might do something for you. It also has 2 different melee attacks. It's Titanic Claws. They are range 2, P plus S, 21, open fist magical weapons. And these here have chain attack sweep. So normally you could do a sweep as like a power attack. This one's a chain attack. So by the way, just gonna make sure everybody knows how this works. If this model hits the same model with both its initial attacks with this weapon after resolving the attacks, it can immediately make a sweep power attack. And while we're talking about that, let's just get this out of the way. A sweep, a Colossal chooses a non-crippled melee weapon, and know that this one, because of how it works on like the circles, it'll never be crippled. With a location L or R and make a sweep power attack. It makes one melee attack with the weapon against each model in this weapon's field of fire that is within the weapon's melee range, ignoring intervening models when determining the line of sight. This power attack does not require a target, but each separate attack does. These attacks are simultaneous, and models hit suffer the power attack damage roll, which, by the way, is really based on the strength, so it would be 14. So what this has all really come down to is that your Colossal can go in there, the Guardian of Souls, and be like, whack heavy, whack heavy. Well, okay, chain attack sweep. Do. Now remember, this is only going to be on 1/4 of the base, right? You have to pick the left or the right, and that's the one it's going to do it on. It'll hit your target as well, because obviously if you were in that range to hit it before, you're going to hit it again. But hey, you know, it's only POW 14 as opposed to 21, but this is a way where you can be working on a heavy, and while you're doing that, sure, let's hit some infantry as well, or something like that. So sure, that's a cool one to have on there. All right, otherwise, the other special rules that are here on this card, and there's quite a few of them. First one is Hollow Ward. This model gains +2 armor against attack damage rolls made by constructs, soulless, and undead models. So this is, for me, this is great because I'm glad that they're not picking on living models anymore. The fact that now this is something that's bad against constructs and undead and soulless, fantastic. Now, remember where we started with the armor on this thing was 18, which is like, but doing this and making it so that when these jacks go against you, it's going to be armor 20. Okay, now we're looking a little bit better here. Like, again, like this is a lot of points. You know, 31 points is not Sea King expensive. It's cheaper than a blockader, so it's not really on the cheap side. So this really kind of helps it, though. Like 30 is still a lot of points, right? When you're comparing it to like a Tormentor that's 12 and being like, is it worth 2.5 Tormentors? It has to be survivable. So we'll go through this at the end, though. The next thing is incognitable abomination. I'm sure you say that first where it's somehow different. The main thing here is it can't be summoned. It would be kind of ridiculous if you'd be like, oh, turn this solo into a gargantuan. It's already kind of silly enough that you're turning a solo into a heavy, but I actually kind of wish there was like some sort of like thing where you can like get 5 solos and make like a pentagram, and then they could go and turn into a colossal. Maybe we'll get that in the next set of the rules. But, you know, you can't summon these things. They start in your list, and then that's how you bring them out. All right. Next thing is going to be soul claiming, and this is going to be pretty important. When living enemy model is destroyed within 4 inches of this model, while this model is in its controller's control range, its controller gains the destroyed model's soul token regardless of the proximity of other models. Now, I don't know if you were aware, but Infernal Masters really need souls so that they can turn them into essence. And if this thing can go and be getting souls for them, it is huge. And so that whole idea where it's like, oh, sure, I can go and hit some heavy and then sweep some infantry. This is a big deal when you're grabbing the souls regardless of the range of anything else and then passing that on to your Infernal Master there. So that is a really big, huge deal, and something where at first, you know, I didn't really pay that much attention to because like, oh, what's the odds this will be coming up? But from what I've seen in the games, these things just kind of happen, right? The fact that things kind of die around it, like within 4 inches, it happens quite often, especially with that sweep. And then even if it just happens a couple of times and passes over a couple of souls, that can be a huge difference in the end. You know, if you're going to say like, oh, is it a big deal if your caster gets two more focus? Yeah, it's actually a huge deal, especially if you got like a combat monster like Omodeus or something. All right, next thing here is going to be Soul Shatter. It is going to be once per turn when a living enemy model without Soulless advances and ends its movement within 4 inches of this model can spend 1 essence point. If it does, the enemy model gains Soulless, and this model controller gains a soul token. So basically by like walking near it, it like automatically takes its soul. And so this is good because 1, it's giving that soul over already. And 2, remember the way that its armor worked is it's +2 armor against constructs, undead, and soulless. So all of a sudden these things walk over. It's like, oh, okay, you're not soulless? Well, you are now. And so even if you were like a something else that is a war beast or something like that, it's not undead, it's not a construct, well, now you're soulless, and now my armor is higher. So that is a great way for not only capturing everything, and I kind of don't like that because of the whole, like, okay, you're picking on living again, but okay, at least it's only 1 per turn. If you come in with multiple, it's only 1 that you're doing it to. All right, there's also going to be in here, that's it for the special rules and all that type of stuff. I thought that there was more things, but that's the stuff it gets from like the Dark Legacy benefits, and there's some tips below talking about how these things work. There is actually one more thing I didn't really talk about, which is Clamp on the Titanic Claw. Let's make sure that I don't miss this one here. And it says an enemy model with an equal or smaller base size, which, I mean, right now it's on a huge base, so it really is everything, suffers -2 defense for 1 round and cannot advance while within this model's melee range. Now, I laughed at this at first because, like, what does this really matter? Because whatever you're hitting, you're probably killing. But here's where I think it really comes in. It's only Mat 6, and I know from my mercenaries that Mat 6 is kind of sad. However, if you hit something and clamp it, now you're basically Mat 8, and that's really helping a lot to really finish off the clamps. Another thing, the idea where you're holding it in place there, where it can't be taking off, it is it cannot advance while within this model's melee range. Well, you can really say, like, okay, you're not fighting anything else except for me. So even though you probably would love to walk over here and hit my caster or contest my flag or my zone or whatever, no, you're staying right here. Now, this would be broken if you're like melee range 4 all the time or something like that. But at 2, it's like, okay, you're staying here. Although, do know that if you are picking on something that does not have 2 inches of reach, maybe there's like a 1-inch reach heavy, you could just be like, clamp, okay, you stay there, and I'm just going to keep on fighting this thing over here. So you can look into some janky things like that where you can be trying to make this work. But I think typically this will be like you're more focusing to try and take things down. But hey, don't ignore this. There's situational times where this will be amazing. Again, talking about my buddy the Blockader, it's like where you get to punch things and move it 2 inches. The vast majority of the time, that rule doesn't matter. But when it does matter, it is amazing. So don't forget that rule in the card. All right, so that's the combat one. 31 points to Guardian Souls. It hit. It kill, it sweep, it kills some more, it takes some souls, gives it to the boss man, things walks in, it says, okay, take your soul, give it to the boss man, my armor goes higher. Okay, for 31 points, looking okay so far, but let's not really kind of give some grades and stuff until we talk about the last one here. So the last one is the Harvester Souls. It is 34 points, so a little bit more expensive, but still, again, compared to other ones, like the Blockader's cheap at 33, this one's just 34, and it's the expensive one for Infernals, so all right, let's see what you get for these extra points. So going across mainly the same boxes, Essence 4, Speed 6, Strength 14, Mat 6, Rat 6, Defense 9, Armor 18, Eyeless, Pathfinder, Soulless, has Abyssal Blast, exactly the same, but now it has Abyssal Harvester. Now, Abyssal Harvester is a spray 10, rate of fire 2, so you got both of these, and this is not linked to a side, right? You can do this anywhere around you, and it is POW 15 magical. So POW 15 spray, not too bad whatsoever. Now, it has a couple of rules on it. The first one on here is going to be Soul Hunter. So this model gains boosted attack damage rolls with this weapon against any models with one or more soul tokens. Typically, this won't really come up. There's not a lot of things that'll be sitting around with souls, especially when it's around this. But I have seen some sneaky things where like, oh, Void Archon, I'm going to kill this thing first. Oh, you want to take its soul? Okay, bam. I first saw that with like the Thamrite Archon where you can do stuff like that. But hey, that might come up here. Again, this is probably not going to be a main rule, but don't forget it for when you're up against something that does collect souls on the other side. The other thing here is going to be Soul Splinter. Once per attack, when a living enemy model without Soulless is hit by an attack with this weapon, the enemy model hit gains Soulless, and this model's controller gains a soul token. So again, whereas the other one is like, okay, you want to come and fight me? Okay, thank you for the soul. This one says spray. Here's a soul, and this is once per attack. So remember, it has 2 of these. So pretty easy, while it's spraying and doing other things anyway, it says, oh, were you soulless? No? Okay, well you are now. Thanks for the soul. Here you go, boss. And that's pretty nice. Otherwise, what it has on the card here is going to be its 2 little claws, but this time they're gaping maws, and they are range 2, P plus S 19, so a little bit weaker than its buddy, but that's because this is the shooty one, and of course they're magical attacks. Now, do these things have any special rules? No, there's no other special rules for them. They're power 19s. Okay, why not? It's on a shooty Gargantuan, power 19, not the worst thing ever. Let's see what else it has. Well, it also has Hollow Ward again. So with this one here, this model gains a +2 armor against the Construct, Soulless, and also Undead models. Now, remember with that Soul Splinter, what it says here is that it's going to gain this for how long? Hit by attack, this enemy hits gains Soulless, and that's it. It just is soulless. Wow, okay. I thought it was going to be for like a round or a turn, but no, it's just like soulless for forever. So whereas the other one had to be like, okay, one thing comes in, you make it soulless, now your armor's higher. You can actually kind of use this defensively, being like, okay, don't hurt me, bam, soulless, bam, soulless. All right, my armor's higher. So, okay, that's not too bad. I thought it was a once per turn thing, but that's pretty nice then. Has the same thing where, oh, I'm going to try and say that word again just because I know I'm going to get it wrong. The incogitable abomination. It can't be summoned just like the other guy, but it also has kill shot. Now, once per activation, when an enemy model is destroyed or removed from play as a result of a melee attack made by this model during its activation, immediately after that attack is resolved, this model can make one basic ranged attack. So the great thing there is that even if you're like, well, I needed to do claw things this turn, but I really wanted to spray, well, okay, great. Claw, claw, claw. Oh, I killed something. I get my kill shot. Poof. And boom, I get to go and spray something. Maybe it's the thing that's going to be like, I'm trying to kill this, but once I kill it, I know you're going to try and kill me back. Okay, spray. Now you're soulless. My armor is up higher. So nice thing to have on there. Won't always come up, but actually probably will come up a lot because this thing's going to want to go and kill things. But hey, you know, that's what it has there. Otherwise, that's pretty much everything that's here on the card. So these are the models. You got your soul, your Harvester of Souls at 34 points. That's really the spray one that's going to spray and take souls. And then you have the Guardian of Souls, which is wanting to, if you come towards it, makes you soulless, takes the souls, and anything that dies living, enemy models within 4 inches, also takes the souls. So whereas it looks like the other one could get more because it gets the 2 sprays, it gets 2, whereas the other one's just 1 as it comes in, well, that sweep could be getting tons as it's trying to be doing that work. So those are the rules, you know, like it's basically a couple of big beefy crabs. They're going to try and kill and spray stuff. I mean, in all honesty, like the range power of the Harvester of Souls isn't super scary. I mean, it's kind of threatening 16 inches. It can move up 6 and then spray 10. I mean, it's only rat 6. It's POW 15. Not the worst, I mean, all things considered, but it's not long range, right? If I'm spraying a heavy or a colossal or whatever on the other side, I'm within 10 inches. It's hitting me back. So I definitely have to be doing this at a time where, okay, there's other things protecting me, because once it gets to me, I'm in a lot of trouble. And that kind of goes for the other one too. I mean, if it wants to do something, it does have that one shot it could do while it's kind of bored in the back, but mostly what it wants to do is get in there and try and kill things. Now, something else that we have to talk about while we're talking about these models here is the fact that how much you can heal it within the faction of Infernals. You know, if this was in some other faction, it'd be like, well, if it dies, I guess the Warlock could pay like 1 Fury to heal, you know, one little box, and that's pretty sad. But in this case here, you have all of your cultists. Now, as a reminder, your cultist band actually has a star action that's range 3 and lets them heal D3 damage points from a living soulless model. So if you have a little group of these guys behind, they can heal quite a bit. Now, that's not always the ideal thing to do. A lot of times what your cultists want to do is actually handing out essence. But hey, you know, the fact that you could be having a max unit behind them of like 6 models and be healing it 63 each turn, that's something. And it's something to be keeping in mind. I mean, one of the things I wanted to compare it to before was something like the other, what is now, the Mountain King. Whereas the Mountain King, as it gets hit, it makes these little whelps, and then the whelps can be used to get in the way, but it can also use the whelps to heal itself. So you basically have to kill the Mountain King all in one go, otherwise it heals itself up. Although it doesn't always work well, because other models with attacks start killing the whelps. You don't have them. Usually here the cultists are behind, so they're pretty safe, and then get to come up and heal it after. But this is something to keep in mind, that I've seen this now in a couple of games where something comes in, does some pretty good damage, but leaves it alive, and then it gets healed up. And I mean, especially because it's in a spot where, for the most part, you know, it doesn't get crippled systems, right? It has different rings, and if the rings go down, that's an issue. But as long as you're not like on your most inside ring and you heal up a little bit, you're fine, right? You don't even need to have the outer ring, really. You know, you're fine enough not being able to run and charge for free type thing, right? So it's really easy to make them fully functional again, and also very healthy with having these guys behind. So something that I wasn't really too sure on, and it still is the fact, right, that this is a meta right now where things are long threats, hitting hard, taking things out. But when I thought about that too, and I was comparing them to tormentors, and so a tormentor being, you know, 12 points. If I want to take 3 of them, they'd be 36 points. So closer to the Harvester of Souls type thing. But for these, you know, they only have the, what it was again, 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 24 boxes on them. That's got to be wrong, right? No, that's it. 24 boxes on these guys here. So you also get, you know, kind of like 2.5 of the boxes. So really, if you're thinking of like boxes per point, it's about the same. But at the same time, the tormentors are only armor 19, whereas most of the time, because they'll be able to put that soulless or construct or whatever, you know, a lot of times those gargantuans are going to be armor 20. They're going to be more survivable. The fact that having these are going to be feeding things to your infernal masters, it's a pretty big deal. And so I think when we're looking at this, initially, I kind of thought like, oh, they're not going to be worth it. They're too risky. You know, it's just better to take the tormentors. But then when I saw that, okay, really, though, it's a really solid way of getting more souls, which is more important. You know, also, they have reach and they're speed 6, whereas the Tormentors are speed 5, only 1 inch in their melee. You know, they threaten farther. Obviously, they hit harder, right? Even that weaker one was 19. The stronger one was 21. The Tormentors are only P plus S17. So there's something there to be saying about hitting harder as well to try and crack some of that higher armor. I think it has a place. And I don't think these are auto takes. If you're out there wondering like, okay, so are you telling me now these are the new hotness and for me to be competitive, I need to have these? I don't feel that's true. I feel that these play a very important role and they can do something very specific for you. But I mean, depending on the meta, they just might not be the right thing anyway, right? I would not be, if I see you at a tournament and you either have 2.5 Tormentors or you have one of these Gargantuans, either way, I'm not thinking you're a fool, right? Either way, you've made a pretty good investment. It's just what you're going to be doing with it after. So with that in mind, let's kind of talk about, there's not many of them. Let's really talk about what type of things we might be looking at. And I think the very first one to talk about is the Omodeus. Now this one here, I was not really sold on it first when I looked at this, because like, okay, this is a synergy Infernal Master. You probably want to be having as many attacks as possible, so you'll be getting as many synergy things going, but Omodeus also has locked horns. And then all of a sudden we have this big Gargantuan that's armor 22 and you're healing it up. You know, like your opponent has to be like all in to take it out. And if they fail, they're screwed. And even if they actually are successful, hey, snap, 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 say the Tormentors, you've just put everything there in front of them. And probably like their hardest hitting things too in order to take this out. So, okay. I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing there. It might be kind of playable. Would I want to do this with the other one? The one that's actually the ranged one, the Harvester of Souls? I don't know if I'd want, maybe if you're trying to add more of a range element to this, you're trying to have a mixed list. So you have like the crabs in front and it's trying to spray things that are trying to get in the way of the crabs. Maybe I don't know. It's like a final piece to go in the end. I mean, defensive wise, it's still the same thing, right? Same boxes, same armor. I could maybe see this. Another interesting one that people were talking about was Zadaroth, because Zadaroth has Black Spot. So you do Black Spot with the Harvester of Souls, with the sprays, and you're just spraying for days though, right? Because you go and spray the thing with Black Shot. Oh, I killed something. I get another shot. Okay, other one on that unit. Oh, I get another shot. So this thing is now just doing like tons of sprays during its turn here, and could be, you know, pretty cute with how that goes as well. The other one too that I think is pretty interesting is Agathon, because a lot of times I see Agathon all being in on the assassination, and the battle group doesn't really do too much for you, right? Of course, you have your arc nodes, your little meatball spaghetti monsters that run out there to be arc nodes, but they're not really expensive. Usually you just need a couple, you know, maybe 3 if you want to be really sure. And then what do you do with the rest of your points? Well, you know, you could take Tormentors and stuff like that, but it's not really going with the plan of assassination. Whereas if you go with the one spray one, okay, this is now something where I know that if I go in there and spray, I'll be at risk to myself, but I am now in a spot where I can add something to the assassination. And even better yet, I'm kind of protecting myself, right? Going for the assassination, blast, blast, blast. Oh, it didn't work? Okay, Harvester of Souls, get up there, spray, spray. Hopefully now it's all done, but if it's not, there's a big Harvester of Souls there. And hopefully then their next turn is going to be spent trying to kill the Harvester of Souls, which would then leave your other pieces alive to actually go ahead and try and actually finish them off. What you see otherwise is like, okay, spaghetti monsters go. Did it not work? Oh no. Now what are they doing on their turn? Making sure all my arc nodes are dead. And then Agathon's like, oh, what do I do now? Tormentors save me. And now you're trying to face like a combat type of style when that's not what you wanted. So I certainly see places for all these things there. Again, I don't feel that they're necessary. I don't feel like these are must-buys, but certainly it's something that it's a viable option. And I think that this is fantastic. You know, I have to really praise Privateer Press for how they designed these models where they aren't crushingly powerful, but seem to be at that one spot there where they're doing really fantastic and enough to be viable, as opposed to like other things in the world here where, hey, you know, Sea Kings and stuff like that just aren't really there. And again, there could just be the points, right? You know, if we were looking at these same things and they were 38 points or something, then we were like, okay, now we're comparing it to 3 Tormentors plus, and it's just not really worth it there. But I feel it's pretty dialed in to where these really want to be. And again, it's going to turn out to how much living things you face, right? If you're going with the first one there, the Guardian of Souls, and you're not seeing a lot of living stuff that you can be taking its souls from, okay, that's fair enough. But you know, when you do face them, these are going to be doing a lot of work for you. So it kind of depends on the meta you're in. Let's talk about one thing I really don't like about these. One thing I gotta say is if you look at the 2 models, they're almost exactly the same, right? They've got a little bit of tail going one way or the other way. The hands look different. The head looks different. But otherwise, it's almost exactly the same. So most of you probably assume, oh, this is a single kit, and then you can magnetize either way you want to go. So, okay, as an Infernal player, I'm going to order 2 of these, spend a lot of money, you know, these are expensive models, and then I'm good because I could be making 1 of each, 2 of the same, just roll 1 if I want, whatever I want to do, I'm golden. Well, they aren't. You have to buy one or the other, and I really feel that's a little bit not fair to the consumer, and I feel like what you're going to be seeing rather, sorry for the cough, I talking too long, and this is the way this goes. But anyway, what I see this as doing then to your community base is they're going to say, okay, I bought 2 of these. I spent a significant amount of money to give this to you. I am not going to do this again. I want to have the option to do these other things. And what's this? I live in a world where I can 3D print things? Yeah, you know, there's times where if somebody was to say to me, oh, I'm just going to 3D print this entire thing and I'm not going to spend any money to Privateer Press, that would be bad, right? Privateer Press has to survive. They has to be doing things. Obviously, if you're going to be using these models of theirs, reimburse them for all the work that they did for the sculpting and designing and all that type of stuff. However, once you already buy 1/2 and you just want the options of switching between the 2 modes, I see no harm in trying to 3D print the other version. We're just talking like a different little hand and crabs, and who even cares which way the tail goes, right? Like, it's just a big crab with slightly different hands and slightly different head. So I do feel that's the one miss here. As much as I praise Privateer Press for how great they did with this model design and its points, and it just fits in this nice spot where it's viable, the way that they did it, that irks me. So unfortunately, that's nothing that we can really change. Hopefully, maybe in the future, it's like, oh, now they are together, and it'd be a super easy thing for them to do. But hey, that's the way it is. So that's it for the video. One last thing I want to throw at the end here is just a quick talk here about the whole Patreon. It actually came into the play today. I went to go and record this, and my save card is supposed to go in there. The plastic cracked, and I could not get this to work anymore. It's done. And so what am I going to be using this Patreon money on? Stuff like this, where I'm going to be replacing my camera components, things in here. And just to do some shout outs and let you know what people can be getting from this is that you have people on here like Nicholas, where for them, and I don't know if they want the last name said here too, but for them, the big thing is that anyone that's on any of these tiers, they're going to be getting an extra access to a video every single week. Awesome. It's my Paint-A-Sodes. It'll be up there just for the patrons. The next one's up, the content manipulators. And on here we have Adrian and Sloth Monarchy. You know, they're at the spot now where they get that and they get to vote on what the topics are. And then we have the content overlords, and in there we currently have Boyd Christie, and so Boyd gets to vote, gets the free video, gets the vote, and gets to pick a Warmachine topic that I do a video on every single month. And so you get to say an extra video I'll be making and what's going to be the Warmachine topic. And he picked a really great one for this one here. So look forward to that one. So anyway, if you want to look at that Patreon, the link is down below. If you have anything to say on everything I talked about in this topic, go ahead, put it down below. I love having these conversations. And yeah, these are interesting models. Don't worry, they're not going to come out there and crush your whole meta. Just know, if you're going to go in and try and kill them, go all in. Because if you don't, they're going to heal up and they're going to kill you right back and you're over. So there you go. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you later. Bye.